Hello and welcome to the Awkward Geek. This is vlog 5 and the topic is suicide. But before we get into that topic, I just wanted to briefly mention once more the 3 types of topics that this vlog series will cover. The first type of topic is abstract concepts, things like love and happiness. Vlogs 1 and 2 covered happiness and self-actualization and how they related to what it means to be human. The second type of topic is news and media, either through news stories or our reactions to those news stories. Vlog 3 talked about our reactions to the outcome of the Casey Anthony case and how that related to what it means to be human. The third type of topic is what we'll be talking about in this vlog, which is life experiences. Suicide is very much a life experience, and many of us have very personal stories regarding it. Life experience, I think, is one of the best topics for talking about the human experience, because life experience is what human experience is based off of. The things that we do and experience in life are what makes up what it means to be human. Also, I'll be trying something different in this vlog. In previous vlogs, I've recorded a continuous stream of just 10 minutes of me talking, and I didn't cut out anything. That made it very quick and easy for me to record, but it meant that if I made a mistake or if I screwed up somewhere, I just sort of kept it in because I didn't want to have to re-record another 10 minutes. With segments, I will be able to re-record segments that I feel are lacking, either in my ability to engage with you on the camera, or because I made a mistake in there somewhere. The downside, perhaps, is that there will be cuts in the video. I'll be talking, and I'll stop on a topic, and then I'll jump into a new topic or a new path in there, and there will be a cut there. I hope that this won't be too distracting. It's something that people are pretty used to in dealing with video these days, but it's something that I'm very curious as to your opinion on, so definitely let me know how it works out. I just want to throw this disclaimer out there. I'm sharing my life experiences, and that's a very personal thing for me. I'm a pretty open person, and that's why I'm able to share them with all of you, but it doesn't mean I'll take kindly to having them mocked, made fun of, or otherwise have rude comments made about them. Now, I realize that there are trolls out there. There are people who thrive off of creating controversy, arguing, making fun of other people. I know that. I've been along the ride with the internet for much of my life, so I realize that that's part of the deal. But as much as possible, I'd like to minimize that, and I'd like for people to be polite and for them to be civil. If, for instance, my viewer base builds up, I'd like to be able to share the life experiences of other people with their consent, but I won't feel comfortable doing that if every time I post a story about my own life experiences, all I see are comments that are derogatory or making fun of it, because I don't really want to have to put those people through that and have their life experiences made fun of or mocked. Suicide is a very sober topic, and as a result, there won't be a lot of smiles or laughter in this particular vlog. But suicide is rich in its ability to showcase the human experience and why we should value life, and why the human experience should be treasured. My own experience with suicide takes place several years ago, back in the early days of high school, and so it's probably close to 8 years ago now. Despite that, and despite our society's relative apathy for most things, I find that we tend to overreact in fear of underreacting in regards to things like suicide. And as a result, when I told the story, even just a few years ago, to people that were close to me, they would freak out and tell me that I needed help because they thought I was still suicidal. So I just want to put this out there, and just to know that this is in my past and I've moved beyond it. You don't need to worry about me, and I'm not suicidal at all. I'm actually pretty content and happy with life. Every good story has a beginning, but it seems pertinent to discuss my background first. I had few to no friends in high school, and I definitely had no close personal interactions with anyone. I was fighting with my father on a near constant basis, and my grades were pretty miserable for an overachiever like myself. Life was quote-unquote awful. The reason I put awful in quotes is because my life wasn't awful at all. I was living in America at the time, and all of my needs were being met. Comparatively to the rest of the world, I was actually doing pretty well. But the important thing to note here is that how we see things, how we perceive them, affects and influences and shapes how we feel about them. And so our emotions, our moods, everything is affected by how we perceive things. If we see a sucky reality, then we live in a sucky reality. The breaking point of my story came after a particularly nasty fight with my father. I don't even remember what we had been arguing about. I just remember that it brought up a very dark and brooding thought, that I'd rather be dead. It wasn't the first time I had thought about such a thing, but it was the first time it had been placed front and center in the forefront of my thoughts. I didn't have access to a knife without raising suspicion, and I definitely didn't have access to a gun, so I didn't have a lot of solid ways of killing myself. I did have a pair of scissors, but they didn't cut through the skin the right way. In the end, I don't think I really wanted to die. I was too afraid of its unknowns. So instead of finding a creative way to kill myself, I just began to stab my arm repeatedly with the scissors, until my arm was covered entirely in blood, enough blood that it soaked through my pants and soaked through the floor. And I, for some reason, remember dumbly thinking that I'd ruined my pants, that I'd ruined the floor, and that my father would be even more pissed off than he was. My arm ended up feeling very weak, and it buzzed incessantly. I could hardly lift it. I could barely move my fingers. I hadn't done any serious or dangerous damage to it. I mean, the wounds weren't particularly deep, but it was painful, and I was scared. I remember crying, stabbing myself, crying. I ended up cleaning off the wounds in the end when I realized that I wasn't going to kill myself that way. And I cried a lot more for what I had done, and I cried because of what I had wanted to do, but had failed to finish. In the end, I'd failed. I never ended up killing myself. I may have tried one more time, but the result was much the same. The most frightening aspect of the suicide attempt wasn't the attempt itself. I was far too afraid to go through with it. Instead, it was the darkness of the thoughts that took over my person at the time. It's hard to explain unless you felt it, but that thought, the thought that you would be better off dead, it's absolutely terrifying. There's a misconception out there that those who contemplate or actually go through with suicide don't consider the impact it has on those around them. But this is untrue. Many of them leave suicide notes, oftentimes apologizing for their act. And I felt this too. I considered those around me and how they would be impacted by my passing. In the end, I was able to assume, quite illogically, that the world would be better off without me. It's a bitter truth, but it does actually bear some witness to reality. In the end, we're pretty dispensable, but it doesn't do us any good to actually think that way. Getting over suicide isn't necessarily about finding value within ourselves, but rather in the life around us. The answer is not necessarily in convincing ourselves that we shouldn't die because we are so important, but because of how awesome the world is. Whether or not I'm here tomorrow, life will continue on, and life will continue being amazing. If I take my life, then I miss out on the opportunity to experience that awesomeness. It's like waiting in line for a roller coaster after walking around an amusement park for hours. Whether it takes 10 minutes, half an hour, or hours, we still do it because we know we'll enjoy the ride. Life will give us far greater and more lasting opportunities than a roller coaster ever could. When we begin to enjoy life, that is the key to finding value within ourselves, because we begin to think about how we can make life better for the world around us, how we can contribute. By choosing life, I took steps forward to making myself a better person. Suicide is giving up on life. If that's the place you're in, you just need to look around and see how awesome the world is around you. Laugh, smile, play, it's all there, you just have to choose. Thank you for watching Vlog 5, and let me know your opinions on the new format. I'd love to hear your feedback. Take care.